Good evening, and welcome to what passes for the news on the Smart Scarecrow show. I mentioned at the opening that, I've got an unusually thick pile of paper here. I was thinking that tonight's presentation might run until about 10 minutes after 10 or so. Then Sterling surprised me and had a lot of material to cover. My news rant tonight is going to take about 30 minutes. There will be one pause about 5 minutes in. I'll have to pause this segment for about a minute and a half. So any of you that need to refresh your drink, you will get an opportunity in less than 5 minutes. There are some people in the news who come and go, and when they're gone, we're happy about it. And then they come back. Sarah Palin. I'm sure some of you remember the name. Kind of a distant memory of, somebody who ran as a vice president with a designated loser named McCain. Do you remember that far back? Some in the audience are saying she's hot. If you're in your 60s like I am, yeah, she is pretty hot. Well, Sarah Palin is back in the news. Apparently, she was belittling the Obama administration about this thing called sequester. More about sequester in a minute. But apparently she writes on her Facebook page, this is a quote from her Facebook, "If we are going to wet our proverbial pants over 0.3% in annual spending cuts when we're running up trillion-dollar annual deficits, then we're done. Put a fork in us. We're finished. We're going to default eventually, and that's why the feds are stockpiling bullets in case of civil unrest." Wait a minute. Is that the same Sarah Palin we all know and love? Sounds to me like she said something almost rational. That little news bite, just to let you know that sometimes even an idiot has a good day. Sequester. It's a verb. It means to set apart, segregate, as in sequester a jury. To seclude, withdraw. Widely spaced homes are forbiddingly grand and sequestered. To seize, especially by a writ of sequestration. To hold or bind in a solution, by inclusion in an appropriate complex coordination. Sequester. Synonyms: to cut off, isolate, seclude, segregate, separate. Insulate, sequester. Why is everybody making such a big deal about sequester? All this whining and crying about sequester. We're doomed. The sky is falling because of sequester. Have you heard some of the nonsense that's going on about this sequester? Oh, if we got a sequester, all the teachers and all the policemen and all the firemen are going to be out of work. We're going to have to furlough all those guys. And it's only going to affect teachers and trash collectors and those services that you, Mr. Taxpayer, really, really, really depend on. We couldn't possibly sequester any of that there TSA who want to stick their hands down your pants. We couldn't possibly sequester any of them drones we got flying and murdering people all over the world. We couldn't possibly sequester any of the stuff that, is for national security. Yeah, that's our story, and we're sticking to it. But you, Mr. Taxpayer, you better be afraid to fly, because we're gonna have to sequester the entire FAA. There ain't gonna be nobody controlling those airplanes up in the air. Well, we're gonna have to sequester all them. Oh, you better open your pockets a little bit deeper. We need just a little bit more money. We gotta have their funding. Yeah. That's the ticket. Yeah. We gotta have revenue, and you are a source of revenue, or you are a useless eater. Sequester. Sometimes I'd like to sequester the damned Congress. I need to take a deep breath. All right. Pressing on. Do any of you know who this guy is? He was born in 1971. I think I'm wearing a pair of socks that was made in 1969. This fellow's name is Robert Gibbs. Now, he gained some notoriety because he was the press secretary for the Obama administration. And he came out recently. He was being interviewed somewhere. Frankly, I don't know if it was a slip of the tongue or if it was, a plant of information into the mainstream media for you to be aware of and to absorb. But, apparently he was asked about, why didn't you fess up to us about all this evil nonsense that you guys been doing with these drones? And he basically came right out and said, I was ordered to ignore the fact that there was even a drone program in existence. I was given orders, and I followed my orders like a good little Nazi. Sieg Heil. So even though the legality of these drone operations were highly questionable, this guy Gibbs did his good little Nazi duty and didn't tell anybody about anything, even though he was asked direct questions about it on many occasions. So, you decide. Was it a slip, or did they finally come right out and tell you, we don't care what you think of what we're doing. We're going to be good little Nazis, and we're going to follow orders. Now, you wonder how secrets about such things could possibly stand. And I'm going to get into that in just a moment, but it is time for me to take that promised break. So if you need to refresh your adult beverage, now's the time to do it. I need about 2 minutes to take care of some housekeeping, and I'll be right back. All right, did everybody refresh their adult beverage? Sorry, didn't take long enough for you to step out for a smoke, but you should have been able to refresh your drink anyway. Tommy Reed says he was able to acquire pizza in that period of time. He's pretty damn quick. Okay, we were talking about this thing about Gibbs. Gibbs came out and fessed up. Yeah, I was told not to say anything about them there drones, so I was a good little Nazi, and I didn't say nothing. And you wonder how these big secrets stay secret, okay? I mean, this has been the argument of the people who believe in aliens and UFOs for the longest time. Oh, the government knows all about this, and they're just keeping it secret. They don't want you to know. And, of course, the government, hey, we're good, but we ain't that good. If there was a secret that big, it would have slipped out by now. And, of course, some say it has on many occasions. But the government kook factors those who come out and say these things so that, everybody go, yeah, right, aliens, right. I think most of us won't believe it until they land in our front yard, but that's okay. Well, an article's been published in a publication called Cryptogon. Cryptogon. That's CRYPTOGON. Cryptogon. Look them up. Use your favorite browser. The article is called Deep State Inside the Government Secrecy Industry. That's basically a review of a book that was published by a guy named William Binney, Binney, and a guy named Mark Klein, Klein, Mark Klein. And what they're talking about here is they're talking about an NSA program called Ragtime. Remember ragtime music? That is some great music from back in the early 1900s. Yeah. But what it boils down to is this thing Ragtime has to do with, you probably heard rumors about this big facility they're building out in Utah where they got more storage capacity than the, they can store all the video information in the Library of Congress every second or something equally as absurd. I mean, this thing has, scadzillions of bytes of online storage. And these guys are tapping every phone and tapping every fax and tapping every email, and they're just storing this stuff and storing this stuff and storing this stuff. Well, here are the components of Ragtime. Ragtime A involves U.S.-based interception of all foreign-to-foreign counterterrorism related data. Basically what that means, if the embassy of Saudi Arabia sends a fax to the embassy of Pakistan, they're gonna tap it and they're gonna store it. Okay, because it might be related to terrorism. You just never know. And the United States is kind of a hub. A lot of global communications passes through systems that are under the control of the United States. So, it doesn't matter if you're a German, if you're a Russian, if you're a Chinese, and you make a phone call or you do a text message or you send a fax or you send an email, there is a very high probability that it passes through a system that is controlled by the United States. And you can pretty much bet any electronic communication of any kind is being intercepted, examined, and potentially stored. Ragtime A. Ragtime B deals with data from foreign governments that transits through the U.S. Yeah, sounds to me like it was covered under Ragtime A. Because anything, by their definition nowadays, can have to do with counterterrorism. Ragtime C deals specifically with counter-proliferation activities. Bottom line, who's trying to develop a nuke? Okay? Well, now there's a new one. And get ready for this. Ragtime P. P as in Paul. Now, I don't know why I guess they're reserving, the rest of the alphabet, D through whatever. I guess they're reserving the rest of the alphabet for some other thing. But P is the remnant of the original President's Surveillance Program, the name given to so-called warrantless wiretapping activities after 9/11, in which one end of a phone call or an email terminated inside the United States, they was going to listen in. Okay? That collection of data has since been brought under law, but civil liberties groups, journalists, and legal scholars continue to seek more information about what it entailed, who is targeted, and what authorities exist today for domestic intelligence gathering. Bottom line is, the cameras and the intelligence apparatus of the United States, having failed to find a credible threat outside, have been turned inward. All of these grand technologies that we developed during the Cold War to keep an eye on them evil Ruskies who are going to, send an ICBM up our butt any day, all of those technologies have now been turned inward to keep an eye on you. Because you know what? You kind of be looking like you might be a terrorist. Crackdown on whistleblowers. President Obama is seeking new rules to allow federal agencies to fire employees without appeal if their work has some tie to national security, a move that advocates for whistleblowers say may hurt efforts to keep government transparent and free from corruption. Bottom line, if you're employed in the government and you have access to confidential information, and you see something come through that you think is blatantly illegal, blatantly unconstitutional, something that the American people have not just a right, but a responsibility to be aware of, and you let that information leak, not only are you going to get fired, but you could be prosecuted, you could be thrown in jail, you could be charged with treason. Does the name Bradley Manning mean anything to you? The Supreme Court has effectively said there is no way to challenge warrantless wiretapping. A bunch of these do-gooder outfits like the ACLU took the government to court and said, hey, the stuff that you got the NSA doing with using all your neat toys to look inward, that's unconstitutional. That's not how we do things in a democratic republic. We want full disclosure of this nonsense. We want to see where you should have to go before a judge and get a warrant before you tap somebody's phone or start snooping on them. Well, the Supreme Court has effectively ruled that none of these do-gooder outfits have what's called standing. They cannot prove that they personally have been directly impacted by this, therefore they cannot bring the case. Catch-22. Do you remember that? Catch-22? Never mind. It's an antiquated reference that a lot of people probably won't understand. The White House threatens yet another journalist. Now, this comes because, a guy by the name of Bob Woodward. Does the name ring any bells to you? Bob Woodward. Okay, this guy was a journalist for the Washington Post way back when, back during, the period when Nixon was president. And he had some inside contacts. You know, this guy's not lily white clean. I mean, he's a little rough around the edges, but you know, he had some inside contacts with some people who gave him the straight skinny on this thing that became known as Watergate. Now, chances are, even if you didn't live through it, you know what Watergate is. Okay? Well, Bob Woodward wrote some articles that were somewhat critical of the Obama administration and basically got a response from people within the administration that you're going to be sorry you wrote that. Now, nobody said anything about, hey, we know where your kids go to school or anything like that. But, you know, Bob Woodward took it as a direct threat. And he's got good reason to, because he lived through the Watergate period when his life was indeed threatened. There was this guy named G. Gordon Liddy who was ready to put a bullet in him, just on general principles. You know, that's G. Gordon Liddy. I mean, you know, if the president had said do it, G. Gordon Liddy would have assumed, hey, if the president says doing it, it must be legal. So yeah, I'll do it. Keep in mind, there are people out there like that. Now, we've gone full circle. Okay? The government seems to think that everything and anything they do is somehow secret, privileged, and you're not supposed to know. Even though they're out there doing it in your name and with your money. But now, your business is their business. And they got a right to snoop, do anything they want. They can tap your phones, they can read your emails, they can read your tweets. Chances are there's some guy at the NSA right now, absolutely bored to tears, watching me rant into a web camera. Okay? Because I'm saying things that are counter to the administration's program. Yeah. There's probably a 6x9 right next to Bradley Manning with my name on it. You better take it serious, because these guys ain't playing around. And even today, you know, you may think that all this nonsense was over with back during the Nixon administration. I got news for you. There's people out there just like G. Gordon Liddy today. They're out there. And if President Obama says, you know, that guy, Scarecrow, he says some mighty nasty things about my mama. Sure be nice if when I wake up tomorrow, he don't exist anymore. There are people out there who will take that seriously and get the job done. Now, are they patriots or are they criminals? Gangland hitmen working for the Chicago mob. I don't know. You consider and make up your own damn mind. And yes, that was Scarecrow's news rant for February 28th, 2013. Hope I got you thinking about that issue. Agree or disagree, as you see fit. But you're right. For now.